Okay, so the others have been invited. Perhaps they prefer not to come over, which is fine also. Um, do you want a formal introduction, Vladimir?
Not
I'm
really.
happy to do it. It's up to you.
No, we don't need my introduction,
Okay.
truly speaking. Yes, but the topic is today very profound and very difficult to address. Yes, the relation of the word and the transformation of the body, or the change in our physical reality, so to say. And it is still a puzzle for many and for myself how this consciousness is influencing our physical existence and changing it and transforming it constantly. So this was the major topic of my life, so to say. I'm coming from linguistic background, general and theoretical linguistics, and was always interested how this word or this formation in consciousness or this expression of consciousness can influence us to the extent that we change. So when we communicate, if you look at our poster, you will see that people are talking to each other non-stop. Yeah? And something is happening when they do that. So there is some shift in perception, in consciousness, in intentions, when we express our intentions, where these intentions are coming from. Why do we say what we say and what it really does to us? Why in that particular context do we disturb it with new intention or new idea? We came together now, we are sitting here in different positions, and I'm disturbing this equilibrium with some ideas. Why? Who is actually talking through me or by me or with us? Since you came to this topic, that means you also invoke some interest. Yeah, there is some invocation coming from us. We want to receive some answer, as it were, and this answer comes. And this is how the major procedure of the word works. So there is a beautiful beginning of Kena Upanishad. Kene shitam patati preshitam manah kena pranav prathamav praiti yuktaha kene shitam vacham imam vadanti. Chakshuh shrotram ka udevo yunakti. So there is kene shitam vacham imam vadanti, by whom compelled or pushed forward, we speak the speech. Who is really making us say what we say? It's an amazing question if you just think of it. Why do we say what we say in the moment of time? To ourselves, to others. So there is a kind of a constant self-expressive faculty of inner being which is constantly working. And it addresses the issues of the context. Yeah, within a particular context, there's some kind of correlation is to be made, or some disturbance is to be created. And how do we know what is to be created? Why that disturbance and not this disturbance, or this in this way or that way? Why this intention came through? And many times it is kind of wrong intention, but we do not see the whole tapestry of relations. We do not see it in time. So because our mind is operating within a very limited time frame, and because of that, we really do not understand a thing. We just operate and operate, constantly communicate something and go on and on and on. And at the end, it looks like our life makes sense. Strangely enough. So there was such a Takuboko, very famous poet, and he said in his beautiful thought that if you look at the human life, you will see it like a book with many pages torn out from the book. You read and then suddenly no connection, something else goes. And the impression would be that it is not full sample of the book, but it is still a full sample. So this is exactly how our mind misunderstands what is going on. And because of that, there is no continuation, or there is no flow of events and understanding why we say what we say. Srira Bender gives a beautiful description of how mantra works in the Veda, how Brihaspati is the Lord of the Divine Word, who is seated within the heart, and how this expression helps the manifestation of the world. So there is a power inherent in nature, the power of fire, Agni, which is rising, which is calling to the divine from above. So the involved divinity calls to the divinity which is above, not involved, to come down and to join the party. And in order to be effective with this invocation, with this aspiration, the word is needed, and it is rising from the heart and frames the aspiration of nature for betterment, for the divinity, for the divine manifestation in such a way that it becomes effective in that moment of time and calls down the answer, the lightning from above. Indra comes down, and Agni and Indra join together. This is something to look into. So the word is operating as the correlator, or the one who frames the aspiration of nature for the divinity. And this aspiration of nature for the divine manifestation is constantly burning everywhere. Only that means it creates a context in which we need to frame that power by the intention, particular intention of the word, that it would be effective in that moment of time. Makes sense, no? Or it's too complicated. Most probably it's both. Yeah? But if something is not clear, because I'm trying to go to the mattresses, as they say, to the bottom of things, to the very beginnings, yes, why is this happening altogether? So in the tantric tradition, this was expressed a bit differently, but in the same framework. So the Paravac, the transcendental speech, is coming down to us as Pashyantivak, as the seeing word, or the intention, or the that aha moment. I know, now I know what to do. I know how it should be. And that I know, that flash of intuition or something, that pratibha, as they call it, intuitive flash, lightning, which is showing how things are, is actually an answer to some call which we are not even aware of. There is a deeper call within us, which we, by mistake or by chance, frame by the words, and it answers. And then it makes sense. Suddenly our life, this moment of time, makes sense. Everything becomes, clear to us. We begin to comprehend the reality. And this is ongoing process. It's not something like happening once in a while. It's non-stop going process. Call and answer, call and answer. And it goes nearly automatically.
I have a quick question here.
Yes, please.
When you say there is an inner call and there is an answer, so the nature of this call, is it linked to the purpose of life? For that individual life, is it linked to the individual purpose of that life, the call?
Right. It made be connected to everything, because individual life is also interwoven into the bigger life, span. So we are working in the bigger framework, universal framework, and at the same time we are fulfilling our individual life. The problems are here more fundamental because of time factor. Our mind cannot really see what is going on, and it looks like sometimes we step back, we lose our track, we fail in our intention, and that failure we do not see as a step forward. We see it as a step backward, but because of limited time frame. But truly speaking, that failure was absolutely necessary for the future breakthrough, which we do not see yet. So it's like in Tantra, they describe how Pashyanti and Mahapashyanti works. And this is an amazing description from Abhinavagupta, where he says, I have to go to the village. It's Mahapashyanti. I go to the village. But to go to the village, you have to do many things. You have to feed your cows, give them water, close the house, switch off the light, buy the petrol for the car, and so on. So close your door, lock the door, and then you go to the village. But going to the village is also not the end of the story. It's only a one portion of time. So you're going to the village for what? To buy some rice, suppose. You got your rice, so you got rice for what? So there is something to be fed. To be fed for what? We do not see for what, So I'm going to the village to get rice to be fed for what? And that stays open. That is not clear. That is Mahapashyanti higher. So as they say, from these smaller interactions or these small activities which we undergo, there is a bigger reason, there is a higher reason, there is even a higher reason. So I have to live because I have to do something in the future I'm not even aware of yet. And that in the future I have to do for something else I am not aware of, even more. And all these Mahapashyantis come to the highest Sadashiva, to the Lord himself. So the first movement of intention of creation is there. That is the original reason to which we all, with our smallest dreams, answer. We all fit into this bigger picture, but we do not see it.
I'm just going to say something here too, Vladimir, because we've had a few more folks come in, and I've been kind of texting, but I don't know if they see. Today we're really having just an informal dialogue with Vladimir on this power of the word. So any of you that are currently attendees, if you would like to join us, you just text me, and I'll move you over. It would just be lovely to have a group dialogue around, to see your face, and even if you don't want to show your face, to be able to have some live dialogue around these topics. So. Just text.
Or to hear your face, let us say.
So, Vladimir, I have a question.
Yes.
So, are you trying to say that we don't know our purpose in life?
We do. We do in very general way, like very mental way. From Srira Bender we learned that our purpose is to manifest the divine, yes? This is the highest intention. And if until then, we will never be satisfied and move forward until it is totally manifested in all its splendor and power and consciousness here. That means immortality. Immortality is the purpose of our life. It's the highest. And then, of course, I have to buy rice in the village in order to do it, And I have to lock my house and feed the cows, and I have to do millions of things which are a part of this movement.
So we need to see the higher purpose.
Yes. If we see, it's like when you drive on the road, if you look at the closer to the in front of your nose, you will be driving very badly. You have to look into the horizon where the road leads, and then you drive very well. Somehow it flows naturally.
This is the wonderful gift of consciousness in our everyday lives. If we are living our lives as an offering to the divine, then our purpose is clear, and all of our actions are contributing to the greater whole, for the highest good. It can't be any other way.
Yeah, and correlated by this purpose, correlated constantly. This correlation comes in thinking, in speaking, in feeling, in the choices, because we operate within a particular context on all these levels. And we have to make choices. We make choices constantly. By that, how far we look or how close we look. Yeah? And even if you look close and if you are very well centered, if you fulfill your kind of inner being, so to say, the best you can, it can be also a quite correct drive without knowing where you are going. Yeah? Just to be centered within yourself. Because all comes from within, anyhow. All this correlation comes from within. So I prepared actually the PowerPoint presentation here, but I just don't think it is. But maybe I will do, yeah? Shall I project? Where is this? I closed it. Wait a minute, I will open it, and then I started to share, and it's not open. Ah, here it is. It's open. All right. So if we look at certain things. So how the word and transformation of the body correlate? If we take it from different traditions, because that was the topic, to look into different traditions, and especially in the framework, in the time frame, so to say, we will look at it diachronically and synchronically at the same time. If we look at this, what the word becomes a flash, this is my first slide, how the word can become a flesh. It's just impossible even to imagine. But in all traditions, in Christian tradition, in Vedic, in Hinduistic tradition, Vakyapadiya, I'm giving here a few quotations. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. And then there is the word and the God, the meaning and the action of that meaning were together, and then it was the word deviated or moved away from the God, as it were, went down into manifestation and manifested itself. The word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. He became Jesus, so to say. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. So it's quite interesting to think that the word manifests in the body, but it is found in all Vedic tradition, in Sankhya, in Tantra. So, and we will look into it, how it becomes the embodied state, the body. Vakyapadiya, the most prominent treatise on philosophy of language by Bhartrihari, begins in this way. The Brahman who is without beginning or end, whose very essence is the word, who is the cause of the manifested phonemes, who appears as the objects at the same time, from whom the creation of the world proceeds. So the word has two effects, of the objects and of the states of consciousness, as it were. Srira Bender gives also interesting here, this is from Srira Bender, equally in Sankhya, classification of 5 elemental states of substance from ether to earth, we see that their characteristic is a constant progression from the more subtle to the less subtle. So from the more subtle to the gross. So that at the summit, we have the subtle vibration of the ethereal, and at the base, the grosser density of the earthly or solid elemental condition. Matter, therefore, is the last stage known to us in the progress of pure substance towards a basis of cosmic relation, in which the first word shall be not spirit but form, and form in its utmost possible development of concentration, resistance, durability, gross image, mutual impenetrability, the culminating point of distinction, separation, and division. So the word, which is one as intention of the higher being and consciousness, becomes the divided substance and separate being at the end. This is the intention and character of the material universe. It is the formula of the accomplished divisibility and infinite uniqueness of the being. I know it's a little heavy quotation here. I will come to the interesting explanation of this by the mother, which is much more psychological and easier to follow. By the way, maybe we will start with Srira Bender. Let us start with Srira Bender. Still, we are in this philosophical framework. Let us suppose, says Srira Bender, a conscious use of vibration of sound which will produce corresponding forms or changes of form. Let us realize then that a vibration of sound on the material plane presupposes, so any vibration on the material plane, any action of the material body, of the substantial material physical body, presupposes a corresponding vibration of the vital, without which it could not come into play. Nothing physically could move if the vital on the vital plane, in the plane of life, there would be no change or shift of vibration. Again, that presupposes a corresponding originative vibration on the mental. There must be an intention. Without the intention, the vital would not be formed into particular energy, and that would not move the substance. The mental presupposes a corresponding originative vibration on the supramental, at the very root of things. But the mental vibration implies thought and perception, and that's how we think about it. And the supramental vibration implies a supreme vision and discernment, intuition of some kind, discernment, seeing the truth, comprehending the truth. All vibrations of sound on that higher plane is then instinct with and expressive of this supreme discernment of a truth in things, and is at the same time creative, instinct with the supreme power, which casts into forms the truth discerned, and eventually, descending from plane to plane, reproduces it in the physical form, or object created in matter by etheric sound, because there is also etheric physical vibration, which organizes atoms into clusters and clusters into the forms, and they become the objects. Thus we see that the theory of creation by the word which is the absolute expression of the truth, and the theory of the material creation by sound vibration in the ether correspond and are two logical poles of the same idea. They both belong to the same ancient Vedic system. So everything which is projected here by that self-expressive consciousness, or the word, invisible, unheard of vibration which manifests the universe, to that vibration we have a corresponding vibration in our consciousness which understands these forms and deals with them in a meaningful, comprehensive fashion. Otherwise, how we would deal with the universe, objective universe, comprehensively, meaningfully? We would not be able to do it. So they are both actions of the same consciousness. This is the scheme of this, which some of you already saw from my course on linguistics, but this actually explains everything what we want to speak about. So we have the linguistic reality on one side, that intentional self-expression of consciousness on one side, and the objective power expression artha on the other, shabda and artha. Shabda, word, artha, meaning, of the word. So they are both, the higher we rise, the more they are one. The lower we go, the less they are one. You can see. So the words and the objects on the material plane are two different realities, but on the highest plane, they are one and the same. On the highest plane of consciousness. So their power and knowledge are totally correlated. That the word acts as the power which manifests. But the lower we come to the material plane, so to say, this is plane by plane, from the transcendental to the mental to the vital and finally to the physical. Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari, these are words of the Tantra. And the lower we come, the more they are diverse. And at the end, the consciousness perceives itself, its own workings, objectively. It names the objects now as if from outside. But truly speaking, they are both coming from the same source.
I wonder if I could ground this a little bit in reality, in the reality that I experienced through cymatics. So this is where there's a certain vibration. You can use a different kind of membrane, different kinds of fabrics, any kind of element on top of the membrane. It's permeable. So when a certain vibration, a certain frequency, pitch is played, the materials organize themselves in a different way. They're literally animated by the vibration. So there is the vibration by itself, and it exists. And it's one, but it's also infinite. And then it acts upon the materials through the membrane to create something new, something that's actually animated and solid. So you can watch these videos and see little grains of sand or bits of oil form themselves into shapes. And they're all actually recognizable shapes. They're geometric patterns. And eventually some of them become yantras and mandalas, depending on the volume and the sophistication and the amount of different frequencies played together. So there's harmonious ones that would create things, and then there's destructive ones that would take the particles apart. And you can look up videos on cymatics and see it's really beautiful to watch. These little grains of sand or drops of oil become like a little creature,
Yeah,
and
well
appear
organized.
to and appear to move about. And it's the vibration that's well, then it's not appearing to move about. It is actually moving about through vibration.
Yeah.
So for me, it has this deep understanding and grounded in something that I can see with my eyes, which is probably the opposite of the way it should be. But for us, the way we experience this world, it feels like what you're explaining.
Yeah, this is beautiful. And the more beautiful part of all of this, what you are saying, is that you are explaining it. You are comprehending it. So the same power of vibration, which was manifested in those vibrations and organizing the matter in a particular shape and form, and you comprehend and can describe. This is exactly where these two and we, while you describe, we can see it and understand what you're saying without even seeing the real kind of vibration in the physical form. We, through you, can deconstruct, we can reconstruct it in our consciousness and nearly see it. This is an amazing...
Through the imagination.
Well, yeah, it's a consciousness, yes, which works through the word. Word is organizing the mind in such a form that the mind forms the forms, and forms are becoming visible to us. And that's exactly how manifestation is taking place, through the word, in the physical. So here Srira Bender actually explains this, what you were saying. Everything begins with vibration or movement, the original kshobha, or disturbance. You can imagine the consciousness which is absolute, like a pure mirror or without any ripple on it. And then what it would reflect? It would reflect only the being there, which is unmanifest, infinite. So everything begins with some kind of disturbance, vibration on this mirror. Some ripple has to be there. If there is no movement of conscious being, it can only know its own pure static existence, like mirror kind of reflecting the infinite silence and depth of space. Without vibration or movement of being in consciousness, there can be no act of knowledge, or therefore sense. So there's knowledge and power. Without vibration in knowledge, there cannot be sensual possession of anything. Without vibration or movement of being in force, there can be no object of sense. There would be nothing to perceive for this sense. So consciousness force, by this vibration, generates two things. One is the object to be perceived by consciousness. This object comes from the being. The power vibrating, the vibration in the being generates the object of sense, and the vibration in the light of knowledge in consciousness generates the sense. And they are coming together, they are going together, they are intrinsic into one action of consciousness, chit tapas, chit shakti. Movement of conscious being as knowledge, becoming sensible of itself as movement of force. In other words, the knowledge separating itself from its own working towards that, and take it into itself again by feeling. This is the basis of universal samjnana. It is true both for our internal and external operations. So what he says is amazing. So then this vibration in power and consciousness, which is intrinsic with consciousness, is separating its knowledge aspect from the vibration of power to perceive it anew. Look at it as if it never saw it before, as if it doesn't know what it is about. and discovering it by feeling. Feeling is that we will take this object into oneself, and again by knowledge, by identity, we will identify what it means, but already as if externalized perception of that internal vibration. So this is how sense operates. Yes, how do I know that this is heavy? Because I try it. Yeah, so kind of. But truly speaking, how do I know at the end that it is heavy? Because I knew it from the beginning already. By consciousness which operates within me and this thing, that it is heavy. Actually, I am rediscovering that what I already know. This is how it operates. Yeah?
So it's memory.
It's a kind of memory, yes. Memory is a very strange topic and very difficult to explain what memory is. Memory is an imprint of some kind, of some experience we had in the past, and there are also imprints of the higher experiences, yeah, which are also memories, our higher supreme memories, let us say, yeah? Where we are coming from the beginning of time memories, which are very deeply rooted in our psyche, in our consciousness. And they also may come to the front, you know, those imprints. But there is something more to it. There is not only memory, and this is the last slide of my presentation. For what the spirit sees creates a truth, and what the soul imagines is made a world. We are constantly creating the world. We are not only reflecting upon what is there already, but we are making whatever we want it to be. And this is something profound. So this is a transformative power of the word, the self-expressive power which can generate. And our realities are very sophisticated. So if we look at it on the scale of time, I will be kind of coming closer to my end in the diachronic sense. So we will see that different structures of consciousness in our developmental paradigm as a human species, where I took here a few examples, the structures from Gepser, the yugas from Indian tradition, and the ages from Srira Bender's view of the human cycle. And you can see that our developmental paradigm is built on these stages of development. It's like the human being is born in this body, and we have a childhood, symbolic age. Yes, that's our everything is beautiful, everything is easy, lovely, surprising. And then we slowly grow into this teenage age, typal age, where we recognize the types, we start identifying the typical with typical, yeah, this is repetition of the same. Then it turns into convention finally, conventional age, I'm reading the last one. And this convention becomes dominating over our even types in our freedom of choice of our childhood choices. And so we submit to this convention, surrender to its cult and repetition and convenience. As Srira Bender says, the cloth becomes more important than the being under. So the presentation becomes more important than the being himself behind it. And then it turns into more individualist stage, separate from all. I have my own purpose, my own meaning, my own being has to be taken care of. And then it turns into the more subjective age, that it would be not enough to treat myself egoistically, individualistically, but to look deeper for the meaning of this individual, for its meaning in life. So this is the procedure which we kind of becoming stiffer and stiffer from Satya Yuga to Kali Yuga. Individualist age is total Kali Yuga, separate existence. Yes, they also compare these yugas beautifully with the cow of Dharma, which stands on 4 legs, then on 3 legs, then on 2 legs, and then on 1 leg, trying to balance itself. So individualistly, age is cow on 1 leg. And it's interesting to compare it with structures of consciousness with Gebser, where he begins with archaic age, where it's zero-dimensional reality. That means there is no difference between the action and consciousness, between Adam and Eve, let us say. Adam and Eve do not distinguish one another. They see themselves as one. They are happy to be as they are. They do not see the difference. There is no yet that distinction, zero-dimensional reality, paradise. And then they are kind of sent away from that paradise down to this manifestation. And here they meet the world and they are totally identified with the world, but they already distinguish that this is me and the world are kind of one. And all Aboriginal tribes actually have this particular magic structure of consciousness, where the oneness of nature, shamanic structure, that me and the powers of nature are operating within the same framework. I can invoke those powers of nature, make them work for myself, or for whatever intention is there to be. How Aboriginal tribes are also hunting. It's quite interesting. Gebser describes this in his book, The Ever-Present Origin. He says if they first come to this shore, and on the shore they draw the antelope, and then they dance around it, and then they take the ray of the sun as an arrow and put it into the neck of the drawn antelope on the sand. They again dance, and then they go hunting. Once they go hunting, they shoot the antelope exactly into the same spot in the neck. They bring antelope to this picture, put it down on this picture on the sand, dance around it, and then they are ready to eat it. Why do they do all that? It's a big question. Because they see the whole world as their own, as themselves. There is no difference yet between them, antelope, the arrow, the ray of light. It's all one existence of this magic oneness. We had Dudu Dien from Auroville Advisory Council, who was from Senegal. And he came from Africa, and he said, in our village, when we want to solve some problem, all the people come and they sit in the circle, and they just sit for hours. They don't speak. There's nothing to say. After sitting for hours, they know the solution. They get up and go and do it. I was surprised that they don't speak there. They just have to come together. Togetherness is this one-dimensional reality which tunes all the energies, and they already know, they already agreed. Sometimes they dance also. They dance and they walk together with drums. This walking together in synchronicity creates this oneness of energy, one being. We see it in the army, how in the army they march. There are 100 people or 1,000 people march in the same manner with the same rhythm with drums. Why do they do this? This multiplies the oneness of the force of this magic structure. We operate constantly by this magic structure everywhere. So, or in the cult, when we repeat every Sunday, we go to the church at the same time, we put this or to the temple, we regularly come there because this regularity creates the cult, creates the oneness of all of us. And then once they realized, so there is no yet inner and outer distinction. There is only me and the world one. And then there is a new realization that I am actually different from the world. This is mythical structure. I realize that I have a being within which comes from elsewhere. My home is not here. It is elsewhere. I have to return. The prodigal son returns. I have to go back to where I come from. This is the religion, the beginning of all the religions. This world is the prison for all of our souls. We have to be careful here. We have to deny all the pleasures. We have to deny especially those magic structure pleasures of, if we take love, then in the magic structure it will be pure sexuality. And in the mythical it will be the love for the divine, totally opposite, against, away from the magic structure understanding of love as pleasure. There is no pleasure. There is a bliss of the divine present within you, and that pleasure obstructs us from it. And you can see in every religion there is a total prohibition. Brahmacharya in Hinduism, the same in the monks of the Christian religion. Yes, they have to be all monks, and the ladies, how do they call them? Not monks, but nuns and monks. They have to be all, they have to be free from this desire of sexuality. Why? Because there is a fight of the inner being with the outer oneness. This inner recognition of your own origin, where you have to come back. And this is two-dimensional reality. Gebser describes this as past-oriented. It only looks to the past, that the past was the best. The beginning, the origin was the best. Now it's worse, worse, and worse. It's interesting, You recognize the religions here. And then what happens? And yes, a mythical. Why mythical? Because this is the expression of the word. For the first time, we explain to ourselves where we are coming from, that the divinity is behind, which we have to come to realize. So we have to look back and to find the divine within us, dissolve this kind of framework in which we are imprisoned by some curse, because we were cursed by God, who sent Adam and Eve down here, and they have to endure all these hardships and return, come back to paradise. So that's our view on mythical structure. But then what happens then is amazing. Mental structure, three-dimensional. This past-oriented view is turned towards the outer being, towards the future. So we look at all the things as they are. We see that we have an actually objective space, not only subjective living oriented to the origins, but also objectively the world exists and can be dealt with objectively. And it's quite interesting how Socrates defined for the first time this view. He says, I don't need any more bards, those from mythical structure, those gurus, to tell me what this world is about. I don't want to know what they think. I can discover it myself. I can measure, I can weigh, I can count, I can think about the world as it is and figure out what it means. This is the mental structure, the beginning of mental structure, 500 BC. All over the world, we have this shift. We rely on our own capacity to find out and to discover the truth.
Isn't it interesting? I heard that one of the definitions for Maya is anything that can be weighed or measured.
Oh, from Maya.
For illusion, yes. Anything
Ah,
that's
Maya,
really
yes,
able to
right,
be measured.
right. I thought Maya civilization. Maya civilization stayed in the magic and mythical structure, never came to mental. That's why they were conquered by the conquistadors, who were totally in the mental structure, because it's much more powerful. By the way, Gebser starts with this. How come that few conquistadors could conquer the whole civilization? Yeah. And that is, his answer was that they are coming from the egoistic, this individualistic, egocentric culture of the mental recognition of the objective. Objectives have to be made, have to be met, have to be dealt with. It's a great power which can diminish mythical and magic, or can overtake for a while at least, as Gebser says, for a while. And this period of mental structure is very destructive, because it's criticizing and not allowing neither magic nor mythical to come through. So magic, oneness of the world; mythical is recognition of our source elsewhere; and mental, viewing oneself objectively. By the way, it starts also with Petrarca. Petrarca is the first kind of philosopher tourist who was traveling only for the sake of enjoying the world. So when he climbed into the Alps, to the top of the hills, this is also from the Gebser, his letters, he publishes his letters. He looked around and he saw that the world is everywhere, that the mountains are on that side, the peaks are on that side, and the world is continuing. And he was taken by it. He thought, wow, the world is real. You can move farther and farther, and it is real and real, real by itself. And then he writes the letter to God saying, sorry, God, I am very sorry that I forgot about you in that moment of time. I saw the world and I forgot about you. He shifted away from mythical, two-dimensional origin-oriented structure to this objective viewing the world as real. And we are viewing ourselves also now as real, as objects. We view we started to deal with ourselves objectively. We developed medicine objectively. We developed all kinds of surgeries and this and that. Technologies are coming with this, because we are dealing with reality in the objective way. It's a very powerful tool, very destructive for the nature, of course, because we are making a big mess with this. Very critical structure, destroying all others, destroying nature, destroying our own being, denying our own self. With our scientific paradigm, we deny that we have a soul. We deny the oneness of the world. We are very egoistically oriented. But what it does, says Gebser, it reorients the past viewing of the origin to the future, so that mythical structure can now, mythical is more universal, individual, now it becomes individual. The mythical, the psyche in us, the soul in us, the psychic being becomes more and more formed in the individual sense and looks forward for the manifestation of the divine. And that leads us to the last integral structure, where all these other structures are presented in the transparent way. They are no more deficient. They become efficient. We have the oneness of the world. We have the understanding of our divine origin. We also see ourselves objectively. I can manage the world objectively by the technology. And at the same time, all these are no more contradictory, because this integral structure permits all of them to contribute to our understanding of the world. Make sense?
So what is the yuga for integral?
Yes. Well, there is again Satya Yuga comes. And again, the cycle continues, the cycle after cycle
but
after.
This is a conscious and integral awareness of the previous 4 dimensions that are no longer contradictory but complementary.
Right. And yes, and notice that Gebser is dealing with them very interestingly. He says that archaic is also integral, but it is still cosmic. Whereas integral here, it's more spelled out. It's more revealed in terms of individuals, in terms of details of manifestation. So all the details, all the nitty-gritties can be integrated into the oneness easily. Whereas in archaic, there is no that kind of yet foundation. It's just a foundation of oneness. So from archaic to integral, we are kind of moving into the more spelled out oneness. So to say, we can operate within the multitude with this oneness. We recognize the oneness in every single smallest detail of manifestation. This is the integral.
Yeah, could we not also say it's diversity within oneness? So we can have this idea of individual diversity. We all are unique in and of ourselves, just like our soul is unique, and yet there's an acknowledgement of the oneness within all. So it's kind of that complete circle, kind of coming back from the archaic to the integral.
Yeah.
I totally visualized a circle too, coming back to exactly where you started.
Yeah, and it is not the same because it's like a spiral. It's another level. Another level.
So in the beginning, we're like a child. We be like a child, and then we're hearing. So we're actually receiving in the magic, learning and receiving. And then the mythical, we're speaking. So we're actually projecting, receiving, then projecting. So we go from being, receiving to projecting, then analyzing all the things that we just projected.
Well, yeah, these faculties I added, I didn't comment on them. This is from Gebser, yes, right.
Yeah, interesting.
He gives also interesting overview of why hearing is first. It's our first faculty of oneness, because hearing is a comprehensive kind of sense of where you are, what it does, what you do, what the world does to you. You see the oneness of yourself and the world still. All the vibrations are pervasive. Yeah, as you said today with these vibrations, they are pervasive. They organize the world in a particular form where I am also a vibration. I am part of that vibration. Yeah? I hear, that's why animals are constantly hearkening. They are listening because they hear some change, shift, vibration. Why I was thinking the other day why the animals are roaring. Well, the bear is coming, or the monkey, or this, why do they do this? Why do they show that sound? They give the sign that there will be an attack. Interesting that they have to communicate it. The snakes have to hiss, and they all give the sign of what they are going to do before they do it. Interestingly, amazing. Not all of them, maybe. I guess not all of them. But
the hearing is very special because of this instrument we have here, this miraculous golden spiral that we have built in to receive sound, to receive vibration.
Right. I think, what I came to think of roaring, just correct me if I'm wrong, or just give me another idea why they are roaring. They are roaring only in the case that there could be a competition or could be a problem or difficulty for them. So they need to make this to see how this other being reacts, whether it is scared. And if it is scared, yeah, I can attack. If I know for sure that I can get it, like mouse and cat. Cat is not roaring, just silently attacking. It knows that it can get it. And even then it comes and it has to check whether it is doable. Yeah? So roaring does that check out. Let me check whether you are ready to be afraid, and if you are afraid, I attack. If you run, I attack. But if you are not, then maybe I should run. Yeah, this is a kind of vibration communication through it's the language of the animals. And then speaking. Why I was mentioning this Dududien, because they do not speak. They are not yet in the mythical structure. They do not have a kind of mythological picture of the world, yeah? In that sense that the same shamanic culture doesn't have mythological picture of the world. It's operating within the magic structure of oneness. It doesn't need the story of us coming here. They appear, all of them come in time, but they are not so productive or so important for the magic structure, for Aboriginal tribes. It's not important. Yeah. Later the word, and he gives the different pictures, different statues. He shows from the magic structure the pictures in the caves where they have faces, but they do not have mouth. Nowhere mouth is drawn because they don't speak. And then with mythical, you see the appearance of the mouth for the first time, but there is no forehead yet open. But in the mental structure, when the Greek civilization comes, you can see the forehead is open finally. You see this is the mental structure. It's interesting. He looks into the drawings, into the art, yeah? Structure by structure. And he actually came to Srira Bender ashram in 1956 and stayed there for 1.5 years. He recognized the mother as the being of the integral structure. He said she belongs to the future structure of consciousness, which we do not possess yet. And you know how he came there, because he found later in his life, when after writing this book on the ever-present origin, he discovered Sri Aurobindo's life divine and human cycle and so on. And he said he recognized the source of his inspiration, that it was Sri Aurobindo. His presence made him think in this way. So that's why I compare his book with Sri Aurobindo's Ages, because he follows up in his own way. So why I'm doing all this? Because I want to show you this, that we deal with the embodied beings in different terms. So we can speak about embodied being as Jnanin, as the one who possesses knowledge, or possesses high Vijnanamaya Purusha, Purusha as the personality, Chaitya Purusha as the psychic being, Atman as the self. By the way, Atman in the Veda is also a body. It's any self. It's not only the highest self, but also the physical self. Yeah? Purusha is the personality, is the one whose presence is everywhere. It's more consciousness. But Atman is actually a physical self, the body. Sometimes Tman, sometimes Atman. So on the highest level, we have this expression of the embodied being through the knowledge or through the higher realization of consciousness. Then we have on the mental level as embodied being, as Manu who possesses manas. Yeah? It could be Manaska, Manava, Manushya, Manin, Manomaya Purusha, the personality made of mind. And it is still the being, the embodied being with the mind. Then we have another expression of the embodied being, is Pranin, the one who possesses prana, breath, or vital force. Pashu, the one who possesses the perception. Asura, who possesses the power of asu, of life. Jiva, or Jivin, or Pranamaya. Jiva is from root jiv, to live, to breathe. Pranamaya possessing the life energy. So all these vital expression of the being And then we have more physical, Pur, fortress. And this Pur is also recognized as having many different gates. Yeah. So we have 11 or 10 or 9 gates. 9 and 11, I think. I don't remember. If you count all the gates outside, yeah, from this Pur, this is the fortress. The body was seen as the fortress which protects us from Abhava, from the abyss of the vital hostile forces, powers. Then Deha. Deha is an interesting word, and Dehin is the one who is embodied in Deha. Deha is the plaster. It's this kind of, which you put as a plaster on the top. Sharira, supporter, protector from Shri root. Sharanam from here, protection, refuge. Where we find refuge, notice the shift in the attitude. It's already somebody embodied in something. Yeah? So to say annam, eatable, as a matter, as a body, annamaya, made out of eatable. Eatable, I have to spend some time with this. Vyakti, manifested being. Bhuta, becoming being, from root bhu, becoming. Adhara, vessel. Vessel for what? For the soul. Tman and Atman, self. And then jhana, jati. Praja, from root ja, to be born, to be generated, to be introduced into this manifestation from the Janar Loka, from Tapar Loka, from the Loka of the Ananda Loka. And then Tano, extension, Toka, Tanaya, these are spreadings in time. Tano is considered to be body because it is spread in time and space. So all of these words have meaning which is very uniquely relating our body to all its functionalities in this manifestation. Sanskrit is very rich in a way. So, and maybe I should stop here. There's this enough food for thought. Yeah,
I have some quotes from the mother. I think.
Yes,
slide.
yes.
Can you see that?
Right. Thank you. I forgot about it. This is amazing. Now, 3 powers of the word by the mother. In this regard, says the mother, let me open it that I can see. In this regard, we can say that the active power of words comes from 3 different causes. The first 2 lie in the word itself, which has become a battery of forces. The third lies in the fact of living integrally the deep thought expressed by the word when we pronounce it, in the moment of pronouncing it. Naturally, if these 3 causes of effectiveness are combined, the power of the word is considerably enhanced. There are certain words whose resonance in the physical world is the perfect vibratory materialization of the more subtle vibration produced by the thought in its own domain. There are certain words which have that power to produce a state of being. If we examine closely this similarity between the vibrations of thought and sound, we can discover the limited number of root syllables which express the most general ideas and which are to be found in most spoken languages with an almost identical meaning. These simple root sounds which we discovered in our course on the etymology. This origin of language should not be confused with the origin of written languages. It's not about writing, it's about sounding, manifesting a particular psychological state of being through articulation. This articulation is a particular effort to articulate a particular meaning. And then, second one, there are other words which have been repeated in certain circumstances for hundreds of years, and which are instinct with the mental forces of all those who have pronounced them. So all those beings are standing behind, like mantras of the Rig Veda, sounding for thousands of years. They have power, they inherited power from all those Brahmins, pronouncing them over millennia, and that power is being triggered when we pronounce these mantras, even without much knowing. Sahana Vavatu, and immediately that all is being triggered. The whole world is vibrating with the presence of thousands of generations of Brahmins standing behind. And finally, these are words. There are words which assume an immediate value when they are pronounced, as a result of the living thought of the one who pronounces them. So to be true, sincere to your own being. You can say any word, any normal word, and make it absolutely powerful, if it is true. So to illustrate what I have just said with an example, there is a very powerful word, for it can combine the qualities of all three categories, and it is the Sanskrit word Om. Om. If you pronounce it, you trigger all these, and if you do it truly, it has a power to transform the being, to cure the sick, So this is I think the third one is the most important for us, because it is how we speak, what we say. And that transforms our being. This is the constant, ongoing transformation of our being through the word.
Vladimir,
Yes.
before you go on, I want to just mention the mother makes an amazing statement that the origin of language should not be confused with the origin of written language. And they say now they think that language, spoken language, of course, was nothing, it was during the time of the archaic consciousness, may have been 80 to 100,000 years ago. And written language is about 5,000. And even though Gebser and others placed the beginning of the mental structure 2,500 years ago, that there seemed to be sort of an on-ramp for about 2,500 years. So there seemed to be this sort of transition period where written language comes in about 5,000 years ago and then really comes in hard with Plato and Confucius and all that. So that seemed really important. And if you I was thinking, if you talk to a skeptic, a materialist skeptic now, who's rooted in the deficient mental structure, they'll of course think everything Mother just said is nonsense. It's just words are just the symbol, signs of nothing, and they're just physical sounds in the air. And it's so wonderful to have this broad structure and see all the implications.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Yeah. And this, just came to my mind the reader's attempt to justify the written language, which is quite amazing what he tried to do, because he defeated his own purpose by trying it. At the end, you could see how it is not working, and he introduced this crossing away the word that you refer to the meaning rather than to the form of the word. So amazing how he managed it. Within his mental critical structure, he tried to kind of go beyond it,
Can I just say one more?
Yes.
I wanted to jump off what Jessica said before. Owen Barfield has this beautiful description of the shift from the medieval mythic to the modern, that he says that the medieval mythic mindset felt the cosmos as a cloak in which it was enveloped. And with the shift to perspective, it was like an object placed in some alien universe. And taking it on a more practical level, I've mentioned before the psychologist Les Femi. Femi found that every patient who came to him, whether it was depression, anxiety, pain, relationships, or even coaching athletes, that all of them had a kind of attention that grabbed at the world, divided it, and was locked into objects. So what he taught them, this is interesting in terms of Gebser, he taught them, all of them, for 45 years, to attend to space. And the thing about space is it has no dimensions. And what they would immediately shift out of the sort of deficient mental structure into this open, spacious awareness. And then one last thing, going to the next step, Jan and I have been looking at this non-dual teacher, Locke Kelly. So he'll talk about becoming aware of spacious awareness, which is still dualistic. Then he'll say, now become aware from spacious awareness. Become aware as spacious awareness. And suddenly you shift into you are this non-dimensional, open, you touch origin. And he goes further and says, now unhook from thought, drop into the heart, and you begin to, because that's still dualistic, I'm spacious awareness, there's objects. Then you begin to sense the aliveness, and this sense of love opens out and spreads, and suddenly spacious, and all the objects are made of spacious, loving, radiant, luminous, spacious awareness. And he guides people with this simple language. And it feels like this transitional time, at the end of the efficient mental structure, there seem to be thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of people around the world who are suddenly, opening to these glimpses.
Mm-hmm. And it leads me to you remember to be as an archaic structure where everything is incorporated. It's an integral structure. I always thought that Rig Veda, for example, represents the integral structure because all the elements are efficient there. There is a very high quality of the mental being, also the precision of the language, very well sophisticated, developed language, first of all, poetic, rhythmic language. And at the same time, there is this oneness, and at the same time, there is this origin of the divine to be done, the sacrifice. All the elements are kind of packed beautifully within one text, which is very rare to find. So in a way, it's archaic, kind of the beginning of that symbolic age, or that where the rishis brought this vision for the humanity, and that vision had to be spelled out in structures, and these structures we have to undergo these changes. So at the end, to put them together again, or to use them more efficiently again, something like this. To learn to be within each structure separately, so at the end we could put them together again.
And to have a conscious intention of life as an offering, rather than just going through the process of growing up, for example, because this is even our growing up process, right? As babies, we're in this everything is one undifferentiated space. And then we slowly go through the ages in our life as rites of passage, especially the teen years, right? And our adulthood. And we can figure it out. And then we come back, hopefully, to a space of being able to do all of that now consciously with a higher intention.
Right. Of course, we lose some force. Mother says when she was 80, she said, now I am ready to live. Now I have all the instruments to be used. So it's interesting. The mother
80's the new 40.
Yeah. So we still have time to go. So it's fine.
About the little children, I just read this morning a beautiful little story. Children up to like 4 or 5 don't have the sense of themselves as an object. This little 4-year-old girl was told to go to the bathroom and wash her face. And her mother came in and saw the girl was washing the face in the mirror. That was the right? They say, the Zen masters say that when you find your original face before you were born, you no longer have your own face. The entire world is a mirror. We recognize this is myself.
Beautiful.
This mirror of this universe is myself.
Beautiful. I noticed that children also do not recognize easily where the sound is coming from. This spatial orientation takes a long time. You can call from one room the person, the child, and he runs to another room. So he does not really orient himself so easily in space. Because he was in the womb listening to the sounds, they were all coming from the same source, as it were. And then suddenly you have this huge thing where you have to orient yourself. Right. Great. Yeah, there are some chat in the chat we have. If somebody wants to ask, better you ask rather than write, because it's... Oh, it's not the questions.
I think they're comments from Jessica
Okay.
that she's making as you were going along.
Okay. Yeah, the Bible story is amazing. Huh? Great. If there are no questions anymore, we can stop. We are already over time quite a bit. And so this is the first entry into the linguistic approach, a linguistic and social approach, a historical approach to the transformation of the body, how the body is being transformed in our own consciousness, how consciousness influences our existence and changes it. So this was the introductory session, or whatever you call it, gathering. And next we will continue, yes? We have the whole plan, the whole vision to bring all the elements together, which will help us to understand how our body is transformed or developed or mutating. By the way, Gebser didn't like the word evolution. Interestingly, he spoke about mutation. He said evolution is somehow... But we see it from Srira Bender's perspective. It's a totally different view. All right, I will close with a mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santo Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Namaste.
Namaste.